there, this is Shona. I'm going to do a little live stream in this. She's got Assets Group and a couple other channels. So if you're just tuning in, like, let me know where you're calling in from. I may or may not see your comments, but I appreciate you being there. So fingers crossed, all the technology plays nice. Okay, here we go. Live in a couple spots. Let's see. Hold on. This might actually work. If you're just tuning in, welcome. Just bear with me here while I do some clicking around in the background. Okay, I think it's actually gonna work. Oh my gosh. Is it starting? Okay. Spinning, it's thinking. Okay, I think I'm live. Everyone, I'm live in all three places. It's like magical. Again, I'm Shona from She's Got Assets. I have a really fun little live training. There'll be lots of time for Q&A. So I'm just gonna jump over to Facebook to let everyone know that we're live. And then again, let me know where you're calling in from, like your location. Maybe tell me how the weather is. It's absolutely gorgeous in Portland. Super, just like, it's almost too warm, but really pretty. So, and it's definitely rental season. It's like high rental season. I've been fielding the leads all day. So I'm going to do a little training on like marketing and advertising. I'm actually going to share my checklist with everyone. So if you want that, just stay to the end and I will share it. And for now, Facebook won't load. I think I'm live. So it's just, I think all my bandwidth is being eaten up. So we're going to assume I'm live. I don't know. I'm going to try a different browser maybe. Hold on. I should have like a different device, honestly. Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah, it worked. Okay. All right. I see a few people. Let me know. Just say, hey, let me know you're calling in from. Always nice to know where you are. I really appreciate it. I know it's a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. My kids are currently away at camp, so I'm enjoying the quiet, me and my husband. So yeah. And if you're watching the replay, say hi. Let me know where you're calling in from. Okay, so tonight, again, if you're just to catch everyone up, this is my name is Shona. I'm the coach and founder at She's Got Assets. I'm going to do a little training on like my marketing and advertising checklist. So like, let me know what you think and just stay to the end and I'll share a link to it. It's a Google Doc. So I'm going to get that fired up here and I'll do a little walkthrough and there's lots of time for Q&A. So please don't be shy. Let me know where you're calling in from because I feel like a late night DJ. And guys, I'm really like a major introvert. So I always feel very awkward doing these things. So send me some hearts or something. I really appreciate it. Okay, I'm gonna just get my document up here and then I'm going to do a little sharing and talk all about marketing and advertising. Like I have this checklist I've been building for years. It's included in some of my courses and it's very thorough, places you've probably never heard of, but it's kind of my go-to. I'm always updating it. So if I missed anything, like let me know, but I'll just do a walkthrough here. So, okay, I'm going to try and share my screen. Share screen, it's going to take me a second. Make sure you don't see, let's see. Here we go. I think I got it. Okay. I think I can have my face on while you can see my face while I'm presenting like this. Okay. Okay, if everyone can see my screen, just give me a shout out or type 1 or just let me know. That would be super helpful. Just say, hey, let me know. Okay. I'm going to assume you can see me and hear me. If not, like, please let me know. So if you're just tuning in, this is the She's Got Assets funky live stream. So I am based, I know this audience is all over. I'm based in Portland, Oregon. It's definitely really nice, lovely weather. We have kind of dreary winters, but it's definitely high season. I get leads all day long. So if you are not getting leads, definitely use this checklist. I'm going to kind of walk through it, go over best practices, and then there'll be definitely time for Q&A. And I'm happy to share this as part of the resources that I have in my courses, but I'm just feeling generous and want you guys to have all the help you can get. So I'm going to share it with you. So I'm going to kind of go over this. So this is my marketing and advertising checklist for midterm rentals. And when you get this, basically it's an editable Google Doc. I pretty much live in Google Docs. I like to be able to edit things and kind of keep them up to date. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so hopefully you guys can see it. So this is kind of like, I call it my marketing and advertising checklist. I've developed it over years. At first I didn't really know what I was doing, and then I figured out, okay, these are the key places to advertise. And then I started prioritizing it in order of like importance. So I'm just going to run through this. And if you guys, as you guys have questions, if you're watching the replay, um, certainly chime in. And, again, if you're a student or you're interested in coaching, we go into this in a lot more detail. But basically, I call it start with a marketing list, right? I like to put my listing description like a Google Doc so it's easy to cut and paste. Again, ChatGPT is your best friend for this. We do have prompts in the course. Most of you have probably heard me say this like a million times, like a broken record. I'm going to say it again. Professional photos, please, please do not take your own photos unless you're really, really good. Yes, in a pinch to get your listing up, that's fine. But ultimately, make sure you have professional photos, like specifically a real estate photographer. They just have better angles. They understand lighting. And we really need to present our properties in the best light possible, no pun intended. So if the ways to find one, you can go to like a local RIA group, right? You can ask maybe your agent or something, but definitely I think professional photos are really important. And maybe you can get your listing up quick and dirty, but then like after you furnish it, make sure to get your photos taken. And especially if you're pre-listing it, make sure that before your guest moves in, you've got your photos lined up. I also like to have video tours. I used to do them like DIY with my smartphone, landscape mode, cinema mode. I've since moved on to have them professionally done. The transitions are smoother, a lot more professional. I will upload that video to YouTube and I can share it with guests, or you can embed it on the website. I'm also a big fan of 3D virtual tours. You typically see that more in like listings, but I like to do it. It's just like one more way to see your property if you're doing bookings like sight unseen, which I like to do. I don't like to bother guests if they're occupied, right? So unless it's an insurance claim, they typically want to see the property, and sometimes it lines up. But for the most part, most of my bookings are done sight unseen. So again, we have professional photos, video tour, virtual tour. If you're doing a virtual tour, and if you're in the Portland, Oregon market, shout out to Brandon Hendrick. He does all my virtual tours. If you're going to want these kind of as evergreen links, you may need to host them yourself. So make sure you sort that out once you get that link, because a lot of times they're just posted for a couple months if they're for listings. Another checklisty thing is it's really important to set up a Google My Business page. It just helps build your online like footprint, credibility. You can get reviews on there. It's kind of agnostic. Your reviews are not tied to like Airbnb or any other platform, right? So I highly recommend it for visibility. Set up, it's totally free, and it's just like what pops up when someone searches your business name. And then I include kind of details to include in your listing. And I do have some kind of sample copy. Like I say, at company name, we specialize in hosting families. Obviously, put your company name. In corporate rentals for professionals, we specialize in 30 plus day stays or in like monthly stays, and work directly with insurance companies and policyholders in need of temporary housing. Right. We love providing pet-friendly, comfortable, stylish properties so guests have peace of mind and all the comforts of home. Just basically saying like monthly rentals, extended stays, comfortable, stylish, whatever those keywords are, you want to make sure to include those. Feel free to use ChatGPT to modify this, but I have like sample copy in here. If you have other properties in the area, make sure to shout that out, right? Or you can refer to other people, like we're all in a network together, right? If you have a lead, you can always refer it to someone else. So say something like we have multiple properties in whatever area. Again, I'm in Portland. If this isn't a good fit, reach out. And then I usually have something to the extent of, pricing varies by season and length of stay. We offer rates for 1 month, 3 months, and longer stays. Because if someone reaches out for a month or 2 months, typically the price I'm advertising for is typically for a year, and I'm going to tailor that a little bit for shorter stays. Again, we always want to offer flexible lease terms, especially for insurance stays. But if someone's coming for a month versus 6 months, that's going to be different pricing, right? I hope that makes sense. I'm gonna just check Facebook if anyone's here. Hey, Linda. Yeah, I love 3D tours. I can share some examples. I feel like when people are, when I talk to them, they just can see it from all different angles. So I started doing that a couple years ago. So yeah, that's what I do. So yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Okay. So then it's a huge checklist. I'm just gonna like spin down, right? There's a lot of places. What I've tried to do in this list is really prioritize like the top places. So if you're like, okay, phase one, I need to be in these top tier places, right? Don't get overwhelmed. Just do a couple at a time. So I'm going to go down the list. There's like kind of tool tips, for lack of a better word, over on the right hand side in the notes section. Be sure to read those. I do have an Airbnb referral link here if you want to use that. So Airbnb is like the number one OTA online travel agency. Please be on there. Everyone has mixed feelings about it. It's a very important place for traffic. There are ways to get people offline. We talk about that in the course, but again, by kind of branding yourself and name dropping at X company name, there's a lot of different strategies. I do not personally want instant book. I want to manage my calendar, and I often will leave listings up just to get, I can get leads. I can direct them to different properties. So that's just a tip there. But and just figure out your strategy. I coach students on this kind of stuff, so I'll just go over it. So I typically, and I'm also in a market, I cannot do short terms. Obviously, you know your market. If you can do a short term and you want to fill in your gaps, you're obviously going to adjust your calendar settings, right? And you can also do this with like Price Labs, like some kind of price integration software. For me, I'm just really exclusively midterm because of the regulation. So I don't need that, but you definitely should look at that if you're looking to do that, or if you're doing like maybe short term in the summer and midterm in the slow season, right? So off the bat, right, I typically will put a 30-day minimum stay. I don't want instant book on. And I want to make sure that you're pet friendly, right? That's just really high level. And there's different strategies, but that's just especially, you don't want to turn on your Airbnb and then have instant book on and you didn't update your calendar and you're dealing with a double booking or something. So just a tip there. Um, hey Janet, Linda says I always do walkthroughs video, but I'll definitely consider 3D tour. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think it's helpful, and it's one of those things like you don't have to, it does, it costs money, but then once you do it, it's kind of evergreen. And I embed it on my website. So on my website, I have a link to the video tour, which is on YouTube, and then the virtual tour, and then obviously the photos. So okay, so Airbnb is, I think, number one. I think second, right, is Zillow. I think people kind of forget that Zillow is a great place for leads. You can put well, and it is more known for like long-term rentals, right? So you can certainly put like a little, use Canva to make a banner that says furnished, because you'll get kind of snipey comments like, why is it so expensive? Because they don't realize it's furnished and all inclusive of utilities. So I don't always do that, but definitely not a bad idea. I sometimes do paid premium. It just depends on my vacancy. Not always. I think it's probably worth it though. I personally also turn off rental applications. Again, I don't want that floating around. I want to make sure it's a good fit. If there's any parking things or pets or whatever it is. I do not accept Zillow applications. They have to come through me. And then you can the other thing about Zillow is you can actually add a link to your virtual tour, which is nice on the free version. A lot of other sites make you upgrade to do that. And then just make sure you're checking that it's furnished and pets are allowed, right? Those are really big filters that people search by. Then moving down, Furnish Finder. Okay, everyone has mixed feelings. I'm sorry, I get tons of leads from there. I think every market's a little bit different, and their interface does kind of suck, but they're really working on it. Their app recently got better, so I think it's well worth it. And like one lead is well worth it. So they're kind of a matchmaking platform, right? You put your stuff up there, you get a lead, and then you connect with them. You get to do all your background screening, and it's a direct booking site. So I'm a big fan of it, and I know they are working on things, and they're definitely upping their advertising. I've been seeing like even stuff on Instagram and Reels and stuff. So definitely recommend Furnish Finder. I definitely speed to lead, like reach out to people right away, look at your unmatched leads, kind of find out why they're in town. Are they on a business trip? Is there kind of a corporate thing going on where you can do some networking? And just kind of ask those questions. I typically will send a quick note, then I'll talk to them on the phone quickly, just make sure the property is a good fit, and then go from there, go for an online application. That's Furnish Finder. And again, I wouldn't pay for them to do your listing. I think you can do it yourself. I don't think it's worth it, but I do think being on there is well worth it. Verbo is definitely, I don't love that platform, but I definitely see leads coming in through there. So definitely be in Verbo. Then kind of going down the list, a lot of these sites will kind of syndicate to multiple places, and they are sometimes more known for long term, but leads come from everywhere. So I want you to be like omnipresent with where you're advertising. Apartments.com and then ALA Solutions, I think we all know, is a temporary housing provider. They're one of the biggest ones. And then just going down the list, Temp Home Services. Turbo Tenant is another one. They're actually also a like a PMS, a property management system, more geared towards long term. They're getting into midterm, right? But you can collect your rent, you can do leases through them, you can do credit and screening and all that stuff. Again, same with Avail. It's also another kind of property management system, and it will syndicate your site. There's like so many different sites out there, and it'll syndicate to all of them. But pretty easy to get your thing on there. And then kind of going down the list, Relocation Match. Sedgwick is another really big temporary housing company for displaced families. United Corporate Housing. Mini Stays is great. Definitely put yourself on there. They're kind of a newer one. Home Ads, Premier Insurance Housing. A lot of these will syndicate to MLS like Redfin, Yampad. These are kind of like high level, right? But I'd say the top ones, if you're going to prioritize, are Airbnb, Zillow, and Furnish Finder and Vrbo, right? And just go down the list. I'm going to check the questions. Okay, let's see anything else. Okay. And then, corporate housing. See, I don't think this one is worth it. I should probably take it off the list. I don't list there. I've tried it out, I've gotten a few leads, but it's pretty spendy. So I think every market's a little different. Your market might be worth it. Maybe ask around, but there's some other places here. And then the big one here is list your property with temporary housing providers. They all typically have databases. And yes, they often go looking on Airbnb and Furnish Finder, and I suspect because the interface is much better. But I do get emails where it's like, hey, I saw your property in our database. So just be everywhere, just put on a movie and list yourself or use a VA or an assistant. But make sure you're in all these databases and refresh them every so often, right? So you can just put on the list like ALE, CRS, Lacrosity. There's a lot of them, and there's probably some not even on this list, but just go down this whole list and make sure you're basically submitting your property to their database. And don't worry about your pricing or availability. They're always going to ask you that, right? So just make sure that you're visible in as many places as possible. And I always tend to update this as I come across new databases. So, and then I have it broken down, and there's like temporary ones. These are more like independent ones, right? They're kind of more like brokers, but they get a lot of leads and they can match you up with them. They're great. It's really good for networking. And then there's some traveling nurse placement agencies. Definitely reach out to them and put yourself on their sites. As funny as it sounds, Craigslist is still a thing. It's not the top of my list clearly, but I still get leads from there. So I will occasionally put properties on there. I would not say it's a high priority, but it still works. I think it's kind of an old school place to look for rentals. So don't miss out on that. And then again, management software, there's some overlap here, but a lot of management software like property management systems, right? You can put your listings on there, and it'll syndicate out to multiple places. So it just broadens that footprint, right? Like I personally use Buildium. It syndicates out to a lot of places. I will say make sure you get your Zillow listing at first, because then otherwise, so the syndication won't do that. I think it just probably prioritizes it. The Buildium, Apartments.com, the Vail, Zumper, right? Turbo Tenant. And I also I have a list, like a database of housing providers that I send out, typically weekly emails to, just so they know what I have available. And then don't forget about social, right? Make sure to post on all your social platforms what you have available, like LinkedIn, Instagram. Those are really great. Just let people know, because oftentimes families in the community are looking, or real estate agents. So don't miss out on that. And then Facebook groups are a big thing. You can post on your personal. Obviously, she's got assets group. There's a lot of corporate housing sites and a lot of other ones. And as you get leads, right, if you can't fill the lead, just go out to your network and put it out there, right? So maybe someone else has a property that you could match them up with. So don't forget about that. Some of these are more specific to nursing and some of them are more corporate, but just kind of figure out which ones make sense. So that's like 104, probably a little less than 100, yeah, because of the things. But it's a lot of places. Don't get overwhelmed. Just start with the high level ones. And again, I think be really proactive and just get the word out there, and always refresh your listings, refresh maybe your pricing or your pictures or your copy, your headlines, things like that. Linda says, I don't know a single person who's got a lead from CA corporate housing by owner. I don't either, and I don't know. I should probably take it off. Like I'm if anyone is, I'd love to hear it because I don't think it's worth it. It's a couple $100 for a listing, and I frankly don't think it's worth it. But it is still it's kind of one of the older sites for corporate housing. So if I know some people think it's valuable, but I don't. So I'm glad I'm not the only one. And then I also, if once you get this list, if you want it, I'm happy to share it. If you click on the second tab here, I kind of have some example listings, right? And just for reference, right? And I always kind of talk about how, talk about your highlights. I like kind of a bulleted style, right? And then always make sure you're really optimizing your listings, right? So you're going to put stuff in like monthly stays, flexible stays, extended leases, pet friendly. Those are kind of things that let people know, hey, we're not just doing short term or long term. We understand this model. We work with the housing. So that's really important. Feel free to borrow this copy, use ChatGPT, right? I always like to have everything pretty organized so you can kind of use this template, right, to keep track of your photos, your video tour, and I also have some like links to example listings. If you want to see what an optimizing listing looks like, feel free to check those out. And then on the third tab here, it's kind of like a template. Use it. You can put your stuff in here. That way it's easy to find because as you go pasting the stuff around, it's helpful to have it in like a really central place. And then there's networking tips, right? For like LinkedIn specifically, you can look for these titles to do networking for if you're going to be more proactive and looking for leads. So a lot of like relocation specialist, travel nurse recruitment, things like that. And this is like your template. You can modify it as you need. And then on the last tab here, I have kind of insurance, housing, or contacts, right? As you get leads or you find unmatched leads on Furnish Finder, start making your own essentially database, right? I've done this a couple years ago and I've got like over 100 contacts right now. So just kind of start being intentional about that because otherwise they kind of get lost in email and you're like, I talked to so and so from ALE and maybe it didn't work out. But just you kind of want to stay top of mind, not be annoying, but just position yourself as like a resource in your area that you have a good network of people and just be really helpful when they reach out. Even if you don't have a property, I always make sure to say, hey, I don't have something, but I'm happy to reach out to my network, and we all have networks, right? So this is a place where you just kind of start collecting those names and emails so you can do follow up. So that is my master checklist. So if anyone wants it, I will drop a link to it in the chat. Again, it's like an editable Google file or Google Sheet, which I love. So you can just make a copy of it. So you can have it for yourself. I'm going to stop sharing this, but if any questions or anything, I'm happy to answer them. I'm just going to grab a link right now for anyone that wants this. It will just ask you to make a copy of it and hopefully just make sure you're logged into the right account. I'm going to paste that into the chat in 1 second. It's on Facebook. If anyone wants it on a different platform, just like drop a comment. Actually, just drop a comment if you want it and I'll get it to you. Okay, Linda says, yes, I'll DM you. I just need engagement. The more you engage on this, then it tells Facebook it's popular. So just drop a comment and I'll pop it over to you. I'll share it. And if I miss any ones, like it's like a work in progress, right? So yeah, I'm always looking for new places to list. But I think it comes down to like having a good network and being proactive, right? I'm also doing a free masterclass on Friday about sharing my kind of top secrets about midterms. So if anyone wants a link to that, I will share that now. It's on Friday at noon, and I will DM people a link to the checklist. But yeah, any questions? I have a few minutes. I'm about to pop over to like an open house. Laura says yes. Christy, yes, got it. Okay, no problem. Linda, yes. Okay, I will send you a quick I'll DM you guys. And if you're interested in the masterclass, there's a link to that. And if you're watching the replay, just type a comment like a checklist or something, and I'll follow up with that. And then I'm dropping a link here for the masterclass. So that was kind of short and sweet. Any questions about marketing or anything like midterm related? It's kind of like your open Q&A session. Happy to answer any questions. and check a few more places. But yeah, that's my checklist. Again, like don't get overwhelmed by it. Just kind of go down the line and look at those samples. And um, I see a few people on Instagram, Rachel, and I'm gonna mispronounce it, Danarube31. Thanks for joining. Um, oh, thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. Yeah, over the years you start developing systems. So yeah, I figured I'd share it because it took me a while to put it together. So any other questions? Otherwise, I will I'll just DM everyone. I'm gonna do that right now while we're waiting. That way I don't forget because that can happen. Just gonna do a quick. Any questions? But let me know if that was helpful or what your biggest takeaways were, because that's helpful for me to know like what's valuable so I can develop more content around that. Okay. I'm gonna message people really fast while we're still on. Okay. Okay, I see a few. Is there a replay for Friday's webinar? Yeah, if Alinda, you probably know everything. If you register, you'll just get like an automatic replay if you read, but just make sure to register so you get that link. It's only available if you register. So I'm gonna message people. Wendy says yes. Yeah, Laura, there's a lot of places. Again, you don't have to be everywhere, but I think to be really omnipresent, especially those databases, and it also depends, frankly, on the kind of property. Like if you have a one bedroom, I wouldn't spend a bunch of time on like going to insurance databases. If you have like a 3 or 4 bedroom, even a 2 bedroom, definitely focus on that. But just kind of go down the priority list, right? You don't have to be in all the places, but if you really want to be everywhere, that's what I recommend. So kind of know what kind of property you have, because insurance is typically looking for like a 3 to 4 bedroom property. So, and you don't know where it goes into their database, and sometimes they reach out, but it's important to be there, right? And keep to stay top of mind. Okay, so I was like, I'm talking to myself. Any other questions? I'm going to message everyone when we're done with that link, with the link to the spreadsheet. But yeah, well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Again, if you are interested in the, see, I have a question. Do I have a resource to learn how to use Airbnb? I've ordered it. Look, I think, Christy, I think the best way is just to get in there and put a listing up. I will say, make sure that when you get it up, just, make sure to kind of optimize it, right? If you're focused on midterms, make sure that your title is like pet friendly, extended stays welcome, and we're not going after like vacation, like hot tub vacation rental kind of thing, right? And just make sure that you don't have, I don't like instant book because then you can't control your calendar. But I think as long as you have that turned off, you can kind of manage your booking. So just be mindful of that with Airbnb. So I don't have any specific trainings. I think it's more just it's kind of like how you position your listing, or even use ChatGPT to say like, hey, it's extended stays welcome, monthly stays, pet friendly, full kitchen, washer, dryer, high-speed internet, dedicated workspace. It's more of those amenities than like the fire pit and like close to the beach or something like that. That's kind of how we optimize Airbnb differently for midterms. I hope that helps. Wendy, how important is 2 bathrooms? Usually when you get leads for insurance, it's like a 3 bedroom. Baths aren't always a criteria. I would say ideal. Like I think the perfect midterm is like a single level 4 bedroom, 2 bath home is probably, if I had to pick my perfect property. I definitely, a lot of my rentals are 1 bathroom, and it's fine. It depends. Like if it's a two bedroom, 1 bath, obviously you get into 3 bedrooms. I think 2 bath is ideal, right? But all properties work. I think they're just kind of ideal. And then if you have it, right? I mean, I'm not sure I'd go adding a bathroom if you have a property with it. Maybe do some research and figure it out if it's worth it. But I think ideally 2 bathrooms are great, right? It's just like the average American family is a 3 bedroom, 2 bath home. That's kind of typical. So if someone has like damage to their home, that's what they're going to be looking for. And a family can always kind of go from a 2 bedroom to a 3 bed. If they're in a 3 bedroom, they can go to a 4 bedroom, but they're less likely to downsize into a 2 bedroom, 1 bath, right? Because that wouldn't be comfortable. So that's my experience. Yeah, good questions. But again, I just test the market, right? test the market, put it out there. And if you're getting feedback of like, hey, we really want 2 bathrooms, and like, hey, maybe consider, could you add a bathroom, or is that something is the return there, right? So I'm all about like kind of testing the market. But in general, I'm usually getting requests for like a four bedroom home, like with a fenced yard and a garage. Bathrooms aren't always coming up as criteria, but I think maybe it's implied that if it's a 4 bedroom, it's going to be 2 bath. I think that's probably the case, honestly, because every property I have that's 3 or 4 bedrooms has 2 baths. The other really popular thing is I just even this week is having a primary bedroom on the main level for accessibility. Ideally, all bedrooms are, but like if you're looking at a property that's if you can have that, that's ideal. So yeah, I'll drop that link in one more time for the webinar. I see someone else just joined on Instagram. I actually went live on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. It actually worked. Super exciting. And anyone that wants the marketing and advertising checklist, if you commented, awesome, I will message it to you. If you're watching the replay, just drop a note in the comments. Yeah, Linda, thanks for chiming in, just saying we get more requests for the bed size versus the bath, but we have 3.2 and 4.2 and 4.2.5. Yeah, I think definitely, and I'm glad you said that, prioritize a really good mattress, having a king size bed if you can. If I have like a 3 bedroom typically, and I feel like I've said this a lot, but if I have a 3 bedroom, I'll put a king size bed in one bedroom, maybe a king in the other, but usually a queen. And then I'll make one room like a dedicated office space. And I can always add a bed, but typically people are looking for a home office. There's a lot of remote work. And then it kind of saves money in setting up the bed, and they're just using it for an office anyway. And then if I'm doing a tour with a family, like a displaced family for insurance, I'll always say like, hey, let us know if you need to move something around, especially for a longer stay, right? I try and accommodate what they're looking for. But Linda's saying we're now looking at 2 options that are 5.2 and 5.2.5. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find the big properties, and they're was managing a 5.2.5, and the rent was we got like 9,300 a month. So I definitely think larger properties are really smart. Yeah, Wendy's saying I'm trying to zero in senior living. I think one level. Yeah, I think one level it's really ideal, or at least if you can't do that, then secondary is like a bedroom on the primary level, but ideally it's a single level. I think that's just the way. I don't know if we're all getting older, but it's just accessibility is a thing. It's important, right? So yeah, larger properties are very much in demand. It's always like 3 to 4 bedroom, fence yard, right? Pet friendly is super important. I feel like I talk about that a lot. I got a lead today. It was like 4 dogs. Just make sure you charge the right kind of pet fees, but lots of pets. So yeah, great questions. Thanks for all the comments. I don't see anything else, so I think I'll give everyone one more chance to chime in. But yeah, I mean, and again, all properties work, right? Like I have a little duplex, and it's like a 1-1 in the studio, right? And I'm getting a lot more of a long term, right? It's not crazy rent, but it's definitely a really sweet little midterm. So if you have like a 1-1 or a 2-1, like don't be scared off, like, oh, I need a 5 bedroom. Like you don't, all properties work. It's just specifically for insurance leads for displaced families. They're looking for larger properties. So yeah. And then one more tip, I kind of mentioned it, I often will leave my calendar open, and I'll kind of get leads that way. And sometimes I'll move them to if I have other properties open, I'll be like, hey, this one just got booked, but we have another property available, or I'll reach out to my network and be like, hey, I have a family looking for this kind of a property. And that way you help the family out and you kind of build your network that way. So I do a lot of times leave my listings kind of up intentionally, right? And I just try and match them with other properties if it's no longer available, right? So it's a little tip there. Yeah. So Linda's asking, do I ever do deposit and pet rent? Okay, so here's my thing on pets, and I have to caveat. So with insurance, right? I think most people know with a with a de- with an insurance, a family that's been displaced, typically it's kind of the golden rule is keep it under 2K, because it typically the family is paying the out of pocket. They weren't expecting to pay the deposit. They weren't expecting to have to move, right? So I typically will keep the deposit under 2K, and then I will charge like a pet fee, which is a fee being the operative word, which is non-refundable. This is kind of more insurance specific because I'm charging a lesser deposit. So then I'm kind of upping my other fees. So I will charge a pet fee. And yes, then I will charge an additional pet rent. I will sometimes negotiate on that a little bit if it kind of goes over their budget. Like I'm reasonable. I'm not going to just charge, like, oh no, pet rent is 150, but if they have a couple pets or it's putting them over the budget, I'll negotiate on that. But yes, I think pet rent and pet fees because it is more cleaning, it's more wear and tear, right? There's more risk of damage, right? Typically, if you're screening the owners, they're going to be responsible. But pets, pets are pets, right? So 100%, I do both. Um, um, yeah, I remember when I was a landlord, like first starting out, I felt like charging pet rent was, I don't know, unfair, and I've since that's gone by the wayside. But I do charge, yeah, both pet. It depends if it's an insurance claim, then my deposit's less, so I kind of it's a little bit nuanced there. Can you give some examples of pet fees? So pet fee would be like, okay, a pet fee is a $600 non-refundable. Like, so you have your deposit, that's refundable. The pet fee would be like a one-time fee. And then a pet rent would be like 150 per pet per month. So a pet fee is non-refundable one time, just kind of covers wear and tear and extra cleaning. And then pet rent is like a monthly pet rent that you're collecting. So if my rent's 6,000 and there's two dogs at 150 a month, it's 6,300, right? Hope that clarifies that. A little bit of nuance there. Yeah, I'm usually like $600 pet fee, and that will cover, per typically if one or two pets, and then usually 150 pet rent per pet. And again, that's specifically to insurance because I'm charging a lesser deposit just to make it more reasonable for the families. And if it's a direct booking, like say like like a traveling nurse or digital nomad, they often have a dog, then I'm like more about $45 per month pet rent. And I don't charge a pet fee because I'm charging them typically a typical deposit, which is equal to 1 month's rent. But also like know your local laws. Like there's laws around deposits and rent and that kind of stuff. So just kind of understand those that so you're kind of compliant. I hope that helps. It's a little bit nuanced, right? Christy's asking, how do you research insurance lead demand for a larger property? Well, okay, so there's different ways to do it. Like you can go look at the market, see what's out there, right? Go to Airbnb, look at the market. You can go to Furnish Finder slash stats. You can kind of check demand. Those are two kind of free ways to do it. You can do a market. You can look at STR data. Typically, if there's STR demand, there's going to be like midterm demand. Insurance specifically is hard to predict. Because we don't know when there's going to be a displaced family, but we know in any kind of urban areas, typically there is going to be demand because things happen. So, and the other way to test, frankly, is like put an ad out there, right? If you're considering maybe keeping it, throw an ad up in some of the places I mentioned and see what happens, right? So and then if you get it rented as a midterm, you can take it off the market, right? That's a way to, and you don't have to rent it, right? But that is definitely a way to actually get very real data on if there's a market for it. I hope that made sense. And feel free to reach out with questions. Linda's saying good catch. This is for insurance. I meant to say pet fee because that's what we currently do, one time non-refundable. Yeah, I think, Linda, I would make it more, especially like just for insurance because I'm keeping the deposit low. So I feel like an insurance like will cover the fees. So that's kind of how I compensate, right? And again, like I try and be reasonable if but typically they're fine with it. So yeah, I think it's just kind of testing. And the other, I don't know if you do this, you can charge an admin fee for insurance too, just because there is a lot of back and forth. There's like the adjuster and the temporary housing company and the family, and it's a lot more paperwork and back and forth. So I think an admin fee is really reasonable. If anyone didn't know that, I think the range is like between 250 and I've seen up to 450. I don't always charge it, but I think it's kind of an interesting thing that you can charge. Um, Yeah, and we cover all this in the course too. Like if you're working with me, we can there's some nuance to this stuff, right? So, or post in the group, but and you get to know this stuff. You kind of know what your property, you kind of know like the ranges, and as you get more leads, you kind of figure this stuff out. But it definitely evolves, right? My pet fees have evolved. Yeah, Linda's 500. Yeah, okay, there you go. Maybe that's my new number. I didn't charge an admin fee in my latest one, and I've probably had like I don't know, 10 texts with the family and then the adjuster. Apparently, they changed adjusters. So it's like, it's been a lot of work. I think I'm always going to do an admin fee. Sometimes I feel kind of bad about it, but after this last one. The family's super nice, but it's just the adjuster changed midway through and we've been like hunting them down. So yeah, charge an admin fee. Thank you. Um, Yeah, I mean, Linda, I think it's just because I'm assuming it's the extra work, and I think that that's kind of compensates us for our time. Because if it's a family or a traveling nurse, right? They it's pretty straightforward. You don't have all these parties involved, which is fine. The insurance is fine. Like it is the business, but that's why an admin fee I think is kind of it's okay to charge that. So great questions, you guys. Love this. Having a one-way conversation over chat, but yeah. But yeah, insurance, and typically they will ask you when you get if anyone who hasn't done with insurance, they'll ask you all the questions. Like I have a proposal in the course, but they're going to ask you what are the fees, what's the deposit, and they just it's not a secret. And I usually try and find out like, hey, what is the budget? So when I submit something, I'm trying to stay within that, right? I don't want to price myself out. Yeah, Linda's saying so many emails and calls for insurance back and forth. I never push back on that. Don't do that for corporate direct bookings. Yeah, exactly. It's the nuance of the type of guest, right? So it's just a lot more paperwork. Sometimes they go really fast and it's like a boom and it's like 2 days and they're in and usually it's a lot of back and forth and adjusters take their time and then you're kind of holding the property a little bit until the adjuster approves it. So yeah, it's kind of a dance. Um, Paula, do I admin fee for traveling? No, because with traveling nurses, like, they'll reach out to you, say, here, I usually have a quick phone call. They say we want it. I send them the application, they fill it out. It's not, they don't have to get approval from their adjuster. There's not all that back and forth. And they're also on a budget. They're much more budget conscious, and it's just not warranted because it is really more admin time for insurance because, again, you have the insurance company, the adjuster, you have the temporary housing company typically, then you have the family, and it's a lot of back and forth. And then the insurance company or the temporary housing wants to see your paperwork and they need all your W-9. And it is typical. And with a direct booking with like a family or a nurse or something, just like a family moving to town, you don't have all that admin. So I've never heard of an admin fee for a nurse. And I think they might be a little miffed about it too, honestly, because they're pretty budget conscious. So Linda says I probably wouldn't, but I also don't have properties that can house travel health care. Yeah. Yeah, they don't and like to your point, Linda, they have homes somewhere else. Like they have a mortgage they're paying, right? Typically. So they're paying the rent for the midterm and they're paying their mortgage at home. And so yeah, they're doing it to make money, right? So they're definitely watching their budget more. So yeah. I might do another kind of training on insurance because I know there's a lot of questions and it's definitely a process. But I don't see any other questions. But thank you for all the engagement, all the good questions. I'm going to drop in that link one more time to the masterclass, and I'll go through the comments. And anyone that wanted the checklist, I'll send you a DM probably later tomorrow because I'm off to an event shortly. But yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Again, if you're watching the replay and you want the advertising marketing checklist, just drop a comment and I will message you with it. It's a Google Doc. It's totally editable. It's like your copy. You can update it, amend it, do what you want with it. So yeah. Yeah, training and insurance. Yeah, I'll do that. I do that every so often. There's a lot of nuance to it, but yeah, there's just it takes a while to figure out. Oh, you're welcome, Laura. Thank you. Paula says checklist. Alexander says, I'm a travel PT. I would not recommend. Yeah, I can imagine the reactions would not be real thrilled about that, right? So there's a lot of nuance to this, right? Even in what we're charging, we might advertise at a certain price if someone's coming in for a month, that's going to be a little bit higher, right? I mean, we try and be fair, but yeah, no. So That's why insurance is it's kind of a niche within a niche for sure. Okay, maybe my next live stream I'll do a deep dive on insurance claims or temporary housing for families. Yeah, no problem. All right, you guys. Thanks again. I really appreciate all the feedback. Checklist. Yeah, anyone just write checklists, and I will happily share that. And again, if you have any places I didn't mention, like feel free to let me know. I'm always looking to update it. So yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna sign off, I guess, officially. But thanks everyone. Linda, you're a PT, but you don't travel. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. You're welcome. All right, everyone. I feel like I'm rambling now. So I'm going to sign off. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. All the great questions. I really appreciate the engagement. It's a lot more fun for me when I have questions to answer. So yeah, I will drop those links in later and I will catch you guys next week. All right. Thanks.